Hi everyone, Krista Cowan here with another episode of The Barefoot Genealogist. I am actually on vacation in Southern Virginia this week, and so I am pre-recording today's show. I may or may not be able to get on the live chat at the regularly scheduled time. If not, just know that I miss you. But this video will be played at the regularly scheduled time, and then of course, as always, it'll be available over on YouTube later. Today we're talking about genealogy education. You may or may not have noticed that we are in the 5th week of Family History Month here in the United States. October is National Family History Month, and we've been trying to provide you with some themed activities and information both through our videos and on our blog and on our Facebook page throughout the month. And so this week is dedicated to some more advanced information. For those of you who've been doing family history for a while, maybe you're looking to take your skills to the next level. That's kind of what we're looking at or focusing on this week. So today I'm going to share with you some specific information about ways to further your genealogy education. We'll start with some basic things and then kind of work up to some of the more advanced information. So with that introduction, let's go ahead and dive in. Let's just start pretty basic. When we talk about genealogy education, sometimes it's just a matter of getting the right information about knowing what's available and where it's available. And so if you aren't familiar with the Ancestry.com Family History Wiki, it's found in the Learning Center. If you just hover over Learning Center and go down to Family History Wiki, you'll find it there. That is the repository for the books The Source and the Red Book. Both of those have been put online, and each chapter or page is an individual page on the wiki. It's been edited and updated as new information has come to light. But let me just show you if you're not familiar with it. I've done a whole video on the wiki, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But let me just show you what it looks like so that you're familiar with it. You're going to get here. It looks like this. You can click through to the source of the Red Book. And then browse by the table of contents that way. Or over here in the search box, you can actually type in whatever information you want to type in and then look and see what exists on that topic. So for example, here's an article about Pennsylvania immigration. Every one of these articles or chapters from this book are written by somebody who is a professional or a professional level genealogist. And they're all written by different people with specialties in that particular topic. And then, of course, every time you look at an article over here on the right-hand side, there's additional information about records that have to do with the article that you're looking at. So that's the Family History Wiki. If you haven't explored it, I would strongly encourage that you do spend some time exploring it. Learn more about the record types that you're interested in, the locations that you're interested in. The more you know about those things, the easier your family history research becomes, the more clear it is what you need to do next to continue to build your family tree. My next piece of advice as far as genealogy education goes has to do with joining a genealogical society. If you are not yet a member of a society, you probably don't know how great they are. There are genealogical societies, large and small, all over the country. Typically, there is a state genealogical society, and then there are local chapters of that society throughout the state. There are also then sometimes local, like county level, or sometimes even city or town level genealogical societies as well. Typically what I've done in the past is I have been a member of the state society where I live, and then I've also been a member of the societies where my ancestors lived. Here's why that's important. Being a member of a local genealogical society where you live enables you to have access to other genealogists, and we all need access to other genealogists. I get some of my best learning just from talking to other genealogists, from networking with them, from learning from them, from taking them my brick wall problems to a meeting and saying, how do I figure this out? And then they talk me through it. So just that networking or in-person capability is really important. So that's why I join a local society. I'll join societies in locations where my ancestors lived, because some of these societies have access to records that you can't get any other way. They also have expertise in local research. So if I need to know, for example, what towns exist in a specific county or existed in a specific county that no longer exist, maybe I want to join the Genealogical Society for that county. If I want to know what cemeteries or churches are there, if I want to know what the holdings are at the local library, I might join that local society. Now, most genealogical societies put out some kind of a newsletter or a magazine. And so as a member of that society, I also get access to that. The easiest way to find a genealogical society is just to Google it. So for example, if I was interested in the state of Indiana, I might Google Indiana Genealogy Society. It's actually, it comes up here as the very top link, Indiana Genealogical Society. You'll see they have a mailing list that you can sign up for whether you're a member or not. They also have a blog, a Facebook page, a Twitter account. Again, those are things you can do without even joining the society, just to start to become familiar with what records they have available, some of the communication or the educational things that they put out through some of their social media channels. Now you'll notice they also have a members only section, and that's where you're going to see some of these records. It looks like they've got a running ticker over here. They have records that are available only to members in the society. And so you join the society and you have access to that. Looks like they're also participating in some kind of an indexing project. And so a lot of the societies do that. They're involved in some kind of a project to preserve records and make more records available, both to members and non-members. So just Google whatever the state or county name is and then the words Genealogy Society, and you'll see, Allen County, Northwest Indiana, they all came up just by Googling Indiana Genealogy Society. That's a big deal. A couple other genealogy societies you might want to be familiar with. One is the National Genealogy Society, NGS. I am a member of NGS specifically because they put out an excellent publication. Their newsletter is a little more than a newsletter. It's actually a magazine, but it contains research that other genealogists have done, and it's very well documented, and I read those case studies or those research reports from other genealogists, and it informs me or educates me about how to be a better genealogist. And then, like I said, those local genealogical societies, either where you live or where your ancestors lived. For those of you who might be a little intimidated by that, or for those of you who, just want something a little bit more casual, there are Facebook groups popping up all over the place. Again, this like-minded group of people, genealogists who can gather online, in this case on Facebook, and discuss specific genealogical situations. Now, with the new smart search technology on Facebook, here is the phrase that you're going to want to use. Find all groups about, and then you just decide what it is that you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to come into Facebook, and I just typed in find all groups about genealogy. That was the search term that I used, and now here is a whole list of groups that are about genealogy. Local genealogical chapters, groups that specific individuals have started, some about genetic genealogy or Irish genealogy. Some of them are about state genealogy. In this case, this is actually the State Genealogical Societies group on Facebook. Random Acts of Genealogical Kindness has a group. And you'll notice some of these groups are open, which means anybody can join. You just click join and you'll see here how many, there's 1,291 members of the group. Here's what the information about what the group is for. You decide if that's useful to you or not. Some of the groups are closed groups. So in this case, we've got the Quebec Family History Society has a closed group, which means when you click join, it actually has to be approved by one of the administrators of the group, whether or not they're going to let you join that group. It just is a way for them to control a little bit more closely who joins the group or not. So always read the little blurb about it, because that will tell you if it's affiliated with an official organization or if it's a more informal group. If you want to narrow down your search, this list, I could go on for pages here, this list of groups about genealogy. I could add information to that. I could say, find all groups about Polish genealogy, right? And do a search that way. Groups about Polish, and, I could do groups about Italian genealogy, groups about, whatever, right? But that's the key, is to find those search words and then find those groups that are interesting. Once you find a group that's interesting, also pay attention. It will suggest groups over here. When you're in a group, it will suggest groups over here on the right-hand side of Facebook, where you can come over here and you can see that it says, oh, look, there's also the Daughters of the American Revolution, and there's a group about German genealogy, and there is a group for Find a Grave, and whatever. So pay attention on Facebook to those things as well. You're going to find some communities of people where you fit in, where they're researching the things that you're researching, and where the people are helpful about the information that you need. Don't just be a taker. Also, just remember that when you're joining some of these groups, you need to have something to contribute. And so maybe, you join a group about Polish genealogy because you know nothing about Polish genealogy. Maybe you want to join, like the group about Find a Grave, and learn how that works so that you can be a contributor there. Google is your friend. I know that probably goes without saying, but when I am looking for information to further my education, whether it's I'm looking for information about a specific Civil War battle, or I'm looking for information about a particular county, or I'm looking for information about a timeline of events in the colonies, before the Revolutionary War, whatever it is, I use Google very, very, very heavily. Whether I'm looking, no matter what I'm looking for. The key to using Google, though, is to learn what the right keywords are, what it is that I'm looking for. And so sometimes you have to really think about it. You have to really get specific. In this case, I just said Indiana Genealogy Society. I was up in New Jersey on Saturday, the first day of my vacation. I actually spent a couple of hours in a local library in Ocean County, New Jersey, and then went to a few cemeteries because that's how I spend my vacation days. And there was a book there. It was called The History of Little Egg Harbor Township, and it was by Leah Blackman. It was in the library there. I actually sat and read the book, and it was a bonus. It just happened to be a bonus that I have family members included in that book. But even if I hadn't, even if none of my family members were mentioned by name in that book, it was really useful for me to read it because I learned about the history of the place. I learned about the predominant religions. I learned about the local politics. I learned how each of the towns was formed. I learned there was information in the book about how boys from across the river would come to dances, and that's why many of the girls ended up marrying those boys, was because there was some, cross-pollination. That was not the word I was looking for. But there was some cross-community social activities, and that's how they ended up marrying boys from across the river, and then a lot of those girls went with their husbands. And so then they found that they were losing some of the women in the community, and so they reciprocated and sent some of their young men over to that community for some dancing and some activities, some barn raisings and different things. Just clever little stories like that, historical things. This book was actually written back in the late 1800s, and it's out of print now. I didn't know this book existed until I went into the library. So I just took a picture of it on my phone, took a picture of the cover of the book so that when I got home, I could Google it. So I Googled it here, just the name of the book. And now you'll see there are other things that Leah Blackman has written as a historian that I might be interested in. There is a link here to Amazon.com for a copy of the book. Now it's $125 because it's an out-of-print limited availability book, but maybe I can search for a cheaper copy of that. Maybe I can look on eBay, keep my eyes open, and so I'm going to go to some local antique shops this week while I'm here on vacation. Maybe I can find it there, right? But it also then takes me to a Wikipedia article about Little Egg Harbor, just lots of different information. Here's a publication from the Tuckerton Historical Society. Well, I didn't even know Tuckerton had a historical society, but by Googling this town and the name of this book that I was looking at, there are some other links here that might lead me to more information or more education about that particular location where my family has super, super deep roots. So just don't be afraid to play around with Google or Bing or Yahoo or whatever your search engine of choice is. I use Google because it allows me to stay logged in and it remembers some of my searching. And so it returns things that I look for higher on the list. They customize your search results for you based on how you search. So I search for a lot of genealogical related stuff. And so, no matter what I put in this search box just about, if it has any connection to family history, it's going to come, those results are going to come closer to the top of the list for me because Google pays attention to how I search. So just get familiar with Google, play around with it. I get asked questions all the time, when did such and such state start keeping marriages? Why would my family move from Kentucky to Arkansas? Whatever. Any question you could ask, pare it down to just a few keywords, type that into Google and just see what happens. You might be pleasantly surprised. Further information about genealogy education. So let's talk about genealogy conferences. Now, there are always genealogy conferences going on. As a matter of fact, this is another circumstance where I could come in here and I could just type in Genealogy Conferences 2014 and just see what comes up, right? You'll end up with a whole list of all sorts of different things. I'm going to tell you about the major conferences. There's 4 or 5 major conferences that occur here in the United States every year. If you've never been to a genealogy conference, they are typically between 3 and 6 days long. I'll kind of tell you as we go. And they are packed full of classes. So you have a different class every hour that you can choose from. There's an exhibit hall where all of the vendors like Ancestry.com and Fold3 and all of the different genealogy software and internet vendors, there's booksellers, lots of different things in an exhibit hall. And you just, again, spend time with other genealogists, other people who get what we do and why we love what we do and who oftentimes can help us and who we can help along the way as we network with them. So here are the major genealogical conferences here in the United States each year. The first one is the National Genealogical Society. It's typically held in May each year. Again, you just Google Genealogy Conferences and NGS and you'll see the information. The conference this next May is going to be in Richmond, Virginia. They rotate cities every year. So every year it's in a different city somewhere in the country. So if it's not near you this year, maybe it will be next year. The Southern California Genealogy Jamboree is the only exception to that rule. It's held in June every single year in Burbank, California. At the same hotel, at the same convention center. It is probably one of my favorite conferences, partially because it's in the same location every year, but also because it gets a lot of younger people, it gets a lot of techie people, there's bloggers and all sorts of fun things. That reminds me, the one conference I did leave off this list actually is Roots Tech. Roots Tech is in its 4th year now, and it's in Salt Lake City, and I believe it's in March, and it's a huge conference. They try to do a tech track as well as a genealogy track, so that's exciting. The International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies has their annual conference every year in the summer, usually the last week of July or the first week of August, depending on the venue or the location. It was in Boston this last year. Coming in 2014, it's going to be in Salt Lake City. And then in 2015, it's actually going to be in Israel. It is an international conference, and so they do go internationally every few years. The Federation of Genealogical Societies has a conference. They're actually not a society you can join. They are the federation for other genealogical societies, so kind of an umbrella organization. And they hold their annual conference usually at the end of the summer, the last week of August or Labor Day weekend. Now, most of these conferences, NGS, SoCal, FGS, they're usually 3-4 days long. IAJGS is the big exception. It is a full 6-day conference. They pack a lot into that particular conference. So if you have Jewish ancestry, that's a conference I would highly recommend. And then Ancestry.com, we hold what we call Ancestry Days. These are usually one-day events or a Friday evening and then an all-day Saturday event. We do 4 to 5 of these a year, and we try to rotate cities throughout the United States. So our last Ancestry Day for 2013 will actually be November 9th in San Francisco, and then we start Ancestry Days up again next year in 2014, usually in about April. And we're looking at, I think we're doing one in Tennessee, one in maybe Oregon. I don't know all of them off the top of my head yet, and we don't have all of them. We don't have contracts signed for all of them or dates set for all of them yet. But watch the Ancestry.com Facebook page. What you're going to see is a lot of those are going to be listed there, either under our events tab, or we will do notices of them on Facebook or in our blog. Okay, there is a little bit of a more intense genealogical learning or educational opportunity with the institutes. So genealogy conferences are a little bit more informal. Genealogy institutes are not only more formal, they're a week long, they're super intense. You pick a track of classes. You're in a classroom setting with instructors and classmates. You're with them all week long. There are a few of them. The first one is the Salt Lake Institute of Genealogy. It's usually held in January every year. So if you just Google SLIG or Salt Lake Institute of Genealogy, it will bring up the information about that. A lot of the tracks for this next January are sold out, but I think there are still some really excellent tracks that are available. You end up with courses in advanced methodology of genealogy. I think this coming January, there's a track on southern states research. And so it just depends on, they do really week-long intensive courses on a very specific topic, usually location or research type. The Institute for Genealogical and Historical Research is in Washington, D.C., or is in Samford, Alabama, in June of every year. And then the National Institute of Genealogical Research is in Washington, D.C. in July of every year. So SLIG, IGER, and NIGER, those are your 3 week-long intensive institute courses. The last, actually, this is the last formal thing I have to share with you, and then I have a little bonus tip for you. The Board for Certification of Genealogists. If you're looking at taking genealogy to the next level, if you really want to get serious about it, then this is the place to go. Even if you're not looking to become certified or whatever, their website has some excellent resources. And so I would strongly encourage you to check that out. If you just go their website, if you, again, just Google Board for Certification of Genealogists, this is their website. They have this skill building or learning center that is fantastic. You can come in here and they'll show you samples of research projects. Excuse me. There are articles here. They have a magazine called Onboard, which I've read a few issues of that magazine, and it's excellent information. But they've actually taken some articles, some of their most popular articles from that magazine, and they have placed them here on their website for anybody to read. So things like, I'll read these to you in case you can't read them here on your screen. Producing quality research notes, conducting effective oral interviews, transcribing source material, citing your sources. I know I've received a lot of questions about that over the years. Good genealogical writing. Let's see here, citations on a source, using newspapers effectively. I mean, just loads and loads of articles, tax lists and passport applications and proof arguments. So information not just about genealogical records and how you would use them to continue to build your family tree, but also a lot of articles on good genealogy practices that will help you become a better genealogist. And every time you can become a better genealogist, it's probably going to help you to grow your family tree. It ensures that you're climbing the right family tree, not somebody else's. It ensures that you have the information you need to take the next step. A lot of times those so-called brick walls that we encounter really aren't brick walls at all as far as the research goes. It's brick walls in terms of our own knowledge or education. And so a lot of the information here available on the BCG website will help us get through that. Okay, last tip, and this is actually, I didn't put it on my PowerPoint because I kind of threw this in at the last minute. It's kind of a bonus tip. Use Pinterest. I don't know if you're on Pinterest or not, but Ancestry.com has a Pinterest account, and I actually run that. And I try to pin interesting maps, links to blog posts and articles. And so you can come in here to the Ancestry.com Pinterest account and you can see there's links to our events. I put links to all of the videos. Here's the maps. I love maps, so that's exciting. We have a board about genealogy methodology. And if you're not sure how Pinterest works, you just, anytime you find something you're interested in, if you click on that pin, it will then take you to another website that usually has more information available. In this case, it's a website that you can click on each state, and it will show you changes of county boundaries as each time the boundaries of a county changed in a state. So for example, I have a family member who, they never moved. They lived in this little tiny sliver of West Virginia here that goes up in between Ohio and Pennsylvania. They lived there always, but at one time they lived in Virginia because West Virginia didn't exist, and then they lived in Pennsylvania, and then they lived in West Virginia. I think they lived in 3 different states and 4 different counties, and they never moved. And the maps help you to visualize that. So Pinterest is really great. If you go to the Ancestry.com Pinterest account, there's some cool stuff there. Or just use the Pinterest search box up here. I can type in the Pennsylvania history is the example I got here. I type in Pennsylvania history into the Pinterest search box, and it will take me to a list of pictures that have been tagged, but they're for books, a lot of them. So for example, the Ultimate Guide to Pennsylvania History Resources, or Documenting Pennsylvania's Past, or lots of different little pins on Pinterest that will take you to other websites that have either books or information about the kind of research that you're interested in doing. Well, that's all I have planned for you today. I hope that was useful. I'm excited to hear what you do with your genealogy education. If you joined us late, let me just remind you briefly that this is pre-recorded. I'm on vacation, and so I'm recording this at a little different than our regularly scheduled time. So I probably will not be available on the live chat immediately following the regularly scheduled broadcast of this video. But feel free to chat amongst yourselves, and if you have questions, of course, you can email me at ask@ancestry.com. I do read all of those and try to respond as necessary. Mostly I just use that information and those questions you ask to plan these presentations. I've just about got the November calendar locked down. We'll be posting that on the events tab on our Facebook page in the next couple of days. So watch for that so that you can RSVP for those topics next month of interest. Until next time, this is Krista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.